Time's up, Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry havoc, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Now, come on, you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an ally.
What about side by side with a friend?
The day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to another Saturday Night Drive-In, where we ask you to join us in taking a break from the nonsense. And there's a lot of nonsense out there where we just want to forget and have a good time talking about movies, even if we sometimes don't really like them. There's no portents there. I was okay with this week's movie, but I do have a lot to say about it. I really do. Because it's the first actual full through I've ever seen it. I realized I had seen bits and pieces of it over the years, but I'd never seen it from beginning to end. And I have now a complete thought on it. But Jed, hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here, just like he said, to escape the nonsense of the week. This film is a weird one for me because, yes, with this watch through, I did see a lot of flaws that I haven't in a while because, I was looking at it through the critical lens. But this film, I can't for the life of me explain why. But for a long time, this has been very much a happy place film for me. Like, it's
really
always the one that I would go back to. If I didn't know what movie to put on in the background when I was doing something else, the Minority Report always jumped to the top of the list. Like, I never really pay attention to it, but it's always one that's right there ready to watch. I've never had the disc for it or anything, just when I saw it on streaming services. I can't explain why this movie has always been slotted in that position, but,
Did you find an explanation today? Or
No.
Wow.
There's definitely flaws in it, so it's not like a film that I can appreciate from a writing standpoint. I don't know why it slots in. I do believe it's one of the last good Spielberg movies. I think 2003 was his last good year. Ever since then, he's just downhill.
I think he was
okay.
He was still a little self-indulgent in this movie with some of the shots here and there. Very self-indulgent. Like, I'm going to linger on this. I'm going to make a funny lighting effect here. It's like, come on. Really?
Oh, the lighting in this film is a major problem. He had some obsession with bloom. Bloom was off the chart in this film.
And at the same time, I've been trying to remember the word all day, and I can't remember it. So I'm just going to say the color is so flat in the whole movie.
Monochrome.
Monochrome. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for all day. Monochrome. And I understand that's a choice. I get it. That's a choice. And it's done with a purpose. But it makes it really boring to watch.
Yeah.
In terms of visual, when everything is just a flat monochrome like that. So let's get into it. We're watching Minority Report. We watched Minority Report. I hate it when I do that. I always say, oh, we're watching Minority Report. Oh, and I got to say, Jed, I just lied to you 5 minutes ago. I have decided on the movie next week. So it suddenly it jumped into my front of my head.
Okay.
I just watched it a few days ago. And I thought, you know what? Let's do that one. So anyway, so we'll get back to that at the end of the show. All right, so Jed, this was your choice this week. Why don't you walk us into Minority Report?
All right. Well, this is the 2003 Steven Spielberg film starring Tom Cruise, which is a near future of America, specifically Washington, D.C., where these beings called the precogs, victims of drug abuse, like their parents were heroin addicts. That part, I think, is a flaw. It's just they don't explain how it's possible. But these kids can see near into the future in the events of murder. Like they dream about future murders. And so this whole organization called Pre-Crime, as a wing of the police department, has been built up in DC to catch murderers before they commit their crimes. So Tom Cruise's character is the chief of this wing of the police department, Pre-Crime, where he just hunts down murderers using these visions of the precogs.
Almost murderers. To
find out where they take place, who's involved and whatnot, to catch the murderer before the murder is enacted. And there's definitely some legal,
a lot of morality issues in this movie, a lot. But I gotta jump right on it. As you mentioned, the drug Narrowin, I think it was called Narrowin or something like that.
Okay.
They don't really give us a lot of information on that drug. I mean, we think it's addictive, but apparently it isn't, because Tom Cruise's character, he's on it, but then he's not. And what does it do? It enhances
memory, because that's what he uses it for, is with visions of his son.
Yeah, so and like you just said, it's supposed to be, we learn about I guess somewhere in Act 2, because this 2 hours 25 minutes, my goodness, this movie is a long haul, and there are peaks and valleys all over the place. So at one point we learn in the middle of the movie that the Narrowin was responsible because these babies who were born from addicted moms somehow gave them precognitive abilities, but let's just not. And maybe some science was involved. We're not sure. I need more world building. I feel like one of the problems I have with this movie is the fact that they waste so much time on shots, that Spielberg is so self-indulgent on long drawn out shots or taking his time here and there, that it could have been replaced with some actual world building. Like, what's going on in the rest of the country?
How's that look? They mentioned that DC was at epidemic rates of murder before Pre-Crime, like untenable amounts of murder. Is the rest of the country still like that?
Yeah, because they show you this map of like infographic murders everywhere, and I'm like, wait a minute. So is the rest of the country still mired in death, and only DC is this haven where nobody gets murdered, but every other crime in existence still happens? Apparently, we can't do good police work for murder, so maybe they haven't obviously done good police work for everything else, because other crimes are still happening. So I feel as though this entire world, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's built on a assumption the audience has to make, and it's a problem that actually leads into a major plot point. One of the flaws I think is the biggest in the film is the plot point where they're going to make Pre-Crime national.
Yeah,
if you watch the movie, that is not possible.
There's only 3 of them. And they're barely
maintaining visions of Washington, D.C. And something they make a point of in the epilogue is distance matters. If they're a certain distance away from other humans, they don't dream about murder. So there's a very contained, they say 200 miles near the beginning of the film.
Okay,
anyone within 200 miles. I don't know if that's accurate. That's just a throwaway comment someone made. Someone within 200 miles. Oh, everyone within 200 miles has figured out to only do crimes of passion, basically.
Yeah.
And so these 3 precogs cannot physically cover the entire country. And we know there's not any more because there isn't like a backup precog that is brought to fill in the Trinity. Agatha's the linchpin. When she is kidnapped basically by Tom Cruise's character, the precogs are done. So there aren't any other precogs. So how are you taking this national? That is a major plot point with the villain's motivations, getting Colin Farrell involved in the story. It all hinges on that.
I know.
And it can't make sense.
And real quick, we diverted in hail and howdy to everybody across the chat. We're happy to have you guys here across both our chats. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. So we hope you enjoy the rest of the show live now or on the replay. Anyway, all right, back to that. So you bring up a great point. How is this going to work? Because when he goes to visit the mad scientist lady in her garden, that was weird. That was weird.
That was a weird aside, like the
Very
living plants.
surreal.
I felt like I was in a Harry Potter or something. They seem like Harry Potter plants.
So when he goes to visit mad scientist lady, she basically has admitted they don't do this shit anymore. That the program is stopped. They're not creating more, and that whatever her level of guilt is, she won't do it anymore. Even though she's cuckoo, she's nuts.
Oh,
she's
yeah,
not
majorly.
sane. She's not sane. And you bring up a great point. There are no other precogs. How can you do this nationwide if there's only 3? So there we go. Oh, real quick, Dom H for 5 gifted subs on my channel here. Thank you, Dom H. Had a great time with you last night on Ball Busters, guys. You can go check it out. It's still up on Dermy's channel. We had a lot of fun. And then it got nuts. It got nuts at the end because then Hayden and ABF came in and there was a lot of madness. A lot of madness. So thank you, Dom H, for the 5 gifted memberships. But so it was the whole concept of we're making a better world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what Burgess's idea was: sacrifices for a better world. And all right, I don't know where to go next because all right, let's start with this. Set us up at the beginning. All right, set us up where we started because I think we'll go from there, and we'll touch upon the issues as I see them, at least from my perspective, as we go through the story. I think that's the best way to do it because this isn't one where we can jump around. I think too much. So let's start us off. Where are we at the beginning?
All right, so the beginning just starts with a little prologue showing you how pre-crime works. We have this random husband who comes back to a cheating wife and is going to kill the cheating wife and the man she sleeps with. And it's not super important to the plot, but it's very good for setting up how all this works.
It's a setup, and it's fine. That opening sequence is great. I mean, it gives us whatever world we have, it puts us in it. We understand the rules. And that's important. We understand
it's vital, but not plot relevant necessarily. The plot really starts to kickstart when Colin Farrell's character shows up, and he is an agent of the Attorney General who's investigating pre-crime to determine if the Attorney General is going to endorse the pre-crime nationwide movement. And so he starts investigating, getting ready for that. And so that's another example of the plot doesn't start really, at least to the part that we know of, without pre-crime about to go national. That is a huge plot point that sets up the beginning of the story, and it can't work. So Colin Farrell's just investigating, and he's used as a plot device to explain how everything's working in a little bit greater detail than the prologue was able to. And how much farther do you want me to go?
No, keep going. Set us up.
Okay.
Like characters, all this stuff. Yeah, go.
So he forces them to go into the temple where the precogs are. So where John, Tom Cruise's character, works to parse through these visions is right above, looking down on where the precogs lie. And they're not supposed to go in there, but they have access to go into there. I don't think that makes sense. If you're not allowed in there, you're just not allowed in there.
Only the creepo weirdo is allowed in there who likes to. Dude, I swear to God, I thought that dude was doing inappropriate things to Agatha.
Oh, 100%.
At one point, I thought he was going to tongue her at one point.
Like, when she got back.
And he's like brushing her teeth, talking about my mom's boyfriend came home and she made me eat dinner with him. I'm like, dude, you're a creeper. You're a total creeper. And I couldn't get away. But yeah, the whole nobody allowed in there doesn't make any sense if Tom Cruise's character is the only one who has the ability, aside from the creeper, to scan his way in there.
Well, the black guy, I believe, had access to, but he was saying that he didn't have the access to let anybody else have access. John had connected rights, like he could endorse.
Okay, I missed that. Okay,
because the black guy was trying to get in, it wasn't working. It's like, hey, Colin Farrell's not allowed in. Then John just waltzes in, and everyone goes in with him, which still doesn't make sense because John specifically says he's never been in there. He's not allowed in there, but he has, group rights,
I guess. But and so that's what kicks it all off, because he goes in there, and after everybody leaves, as we get the whole big speech about how they're all drugged up, they live in the water milk, and it keeps them numb, and they're in a half vegetative, half awake state. It's how they keep all the bad shit out and keep them comfortable. Then Agatha, the female precog, grabs him and shows him the image of. Should I spoil it now? I might as
Yeah,
well.
it's 21 years old, 22
Yeah.
years old. I think we could spoil
So, suppose the image of what we find out later is the death of her mother,
it.
who wanted to basically get her daughter out of it and have another chance with her to have a life with her. Which is there's nothing wrong with that. That's a making amends moment right there. And basically, by doing that, it triggers an event. You got to wonder. Because there's no evidence of this in the movie, so I have to go to good old, I don't want to say headcanon, but dissecting reasons. Agatha triggers this whole thing. Does she trigger it to get her own freedom from this nightmare she lives in?
I'm not sure if that's true. I think she just wants to solve her mother's murder because she's been showing this echo, what they believe to be an echo, consistently for a long time. So she just took the opportunity to touch Tom Cruise.
Explain the echo thing.
So there's this. Apparently, the precogs can sometimes relive murders after they happen, and they look almost identical to their visions before they happen. And so the techs at pre-crime who are monitoring the visions are trained to disregard echoes. And so that's a very important plot piece as well. And yeah, she's just been showing this echo consistently for a long time because everyone recognizes it as an echo every time they see it, to the point where they even explain to Colin Farrell, "Oh yeah, that's an echo. Like that is the go-to echo. It looks like." Yeah. So she's been trying to make people see and understand for a long time, but Tom Cruise was just standing close enough that she could put extra emphasis on it.
And she like adds extra words. Do you see this? Can you see it? Like that. And it's all then, and it's ironic. She does this at the same time. Then he mentions it to his boss Burgess. And this triggers everything because now we learn throughout the stuff, the character building. The first 30 minutes is all character work. Outside it's all limited world building and character work. We know that Tom Cruise lost his son when they were at that public pool. I ain't taking my eyes off my kid at that public pool.
Oh God, no! There's way too many people there.
That was retarded. I'm gonna go underwater and hold my breath and not keep an eye on my 6-year-old kid. What is that? What is that? And he said, "I'm smiling underwater." All right, the kid float by. Wait a minute. Here's my watch. Oh shit, my kid's gone.
It did happen very fast though. Like he was.
That's
not
how it does happen.
Very long.
Does how it happens. Listen. Just side moment. I'm out in the public a lot. I go out shopping all the time, once or twice a week, and I'm always watching parents and their kids. It's a real thing where parents ain't goddamn paying attention to their kids. I will watch toddlers, like maybe 3-4 years old, running in very wide circles in an area, and dad looking at his phone, not paying attention. And I just think, man, it would just take 1 second for a dude to grab that kid, and the kid's gone. So that hit home to me how irresponsible he was in that moment as a cop. How irresponsible he was, not paying attention to his kid. And this is before the precog stuff. So that means that's still cesspool. Well, let's just say current day Washington, D.C.
Well, that was Baltimore.
Baltimore. Sorry. Hey, no difference. No difference. Baltimore.
That's a little bit more accurate to current day than D.C.
Ain't no different. But so that really jumped out at me. I'm like, man, that is so irresponsible. You're a cop, and that there's no difference. Even in 2002, you don't take your eyes off your kids for a second. I mean, my mom, literally, when I lived in New York as a kid, when I was a little kid, and I grew up in Manhattan, where I was born, man, she never took her eyes off me for a second. Because if she took her eyes off me, once I learned, because I was walking within a year, I could have run right into the fucking street.
Yeah,
when we're out. So
I think it was different where I grew up too. Because I grew up in a town of 400 people in rural Idaho.
Oh, that's way different.
It's
way different. Yeah,
we were we could wander around the whole town.
That's so much different. Yeah,
yeah. Like it's just not something that I would think of necessarily.
Yeah. And I grew up in a very urban environment, and even when we moved to the suburbs in Jersey, it was still different. I wasn't allowed out on my own until I was in double digits. Once I was in double digits with a lot of friends, that's different. But single digit, I was never out of my mom's sight when she was in charge of the kids. And when she wasn't in charge and other moms were, bad shit happened because I was a dangerous youth and I hurt myself very easily. So I broke foot, broke limbs, got hurt. So you pay attention to kids. But that's the whole point. So the kidnapping and death of his son, or disappearance because they never found the body. That's a thing. They never
I
found
think
the body.
the flashback really hurts it. Like
Yeah.
without knowing the details,
Yeah.
it still works for the story. Just with him
Yeah.
watching the memories, the little video cards talking about with other people. I think there's some rough exposition, especially since we're already getting flashbacks like Colin Farrell just
Yeah.
in the elevators. Like, it must suck to have had your kid kidnapped right in front of you at a public
Yeah.
pool. It's
Yeah.
like that exposition was rough, but without the flashback, I think it would have worked a lot better. We didn't need to see it to understand the effect it had on him.
Yeah, because they did a very interesting job of letting us know something happened early on, but not giving us the details, letting us know there was a tragedy and it was a criminal tragedy. It wasn't, he didn't do something to his kid, it was a criminal tragedy. And that was enough. I didn't need the extra. And that's one of those things. I said, this is a 2 hour, 25-minute movie. This could have been trimmed down, I think, easily 30 to 45 minutes. I don't know where, because Spielberg does a good job of making you pay attention to every little spot because he wants you to, but it should this thing could have been a tighter movie overall because it loses its pacing. The end of the third act, while very well done, man, that's a major drop off from everything leading up to it when they're out of the country house. We'll get there. So we learn all this stuff, and after he reveals that, after Tom Cruise's character learns about the death of the chick, of Agatha's mom, suddenly an event where he's going to commit a murder is triggered through the precogs. And at first I'm thinking, okay, is there any way somebody falsified this? But then I realized, no, they can't, because this is a vision of the future. These events are going to happen. And I guess let's talk about at this moment the whole ethical nature of the pre-crime movement. Let's dive into that, because that's basically what all this is. He's convinced at this point, there's no way I'm going to kill somebody. How can I be arrested for somebody I don't know? I'm going to kill them. It's clearly not going to be a crime of passion, because they lay out the rules. If it's a red ball, it's a crime of passion, literally about to happen. We have to act quickly. Brown ball, that's going to happen with at least 3 to 4 days time.
Yeah, you've got some
which
time
means
to figure it out.
It's premeditated. So it calls the question, how can he premeditate a murder that we learn in the moment when it's about to happen literally is a crime of passion in that moment, but it is also premeditated because he'd been thinking about it, what he would do. So it's a little
it's a little gray. The way that I understand it is he's been premeditating this murder since his son disappeared. So it's been premeditated for a long time. He just needed to know where
the
and
focus.
the focus of it. That's how I've understood it. But it's also, like you said, he has been thinking about it since the ball dropped, and so he's thinking about this murder. And you know, the red ball we were seeing events from before he had made the decision. It's not like making the decision is what precipitates the ball drop and the vision starts. So again, it is blurry, and it's even
the
more
murky
blurry.
nature of the whole concept.
It's even more blurry when we find out later on in the film that Burgess is the one who set him up in this scenario. The only reason that Tom Cruise's John finds out about all this, because he's trying to figure out how it happened. Burgess can't have relied upon the vision leading him to.
There's a lot of your favorite word, coincidence.
There's a lot of coincidences in this film, and contrivances, like later on when he kidnaps Agatha, the perfectly 2 human-sized rain in the floor. Like, there's some stuff like that. But how did Burgess imagine getting John to the hotel
to that
where
moment.
the fake bad guy was?
Because finish thought. Sorry.
But it's unbelievable at that point. Yes, he knows the system more than anybody else, but he can't rely upon the system to coincidentally help him. If it didn't work, he had to put at least a backup plan of finding that chain of events.
And that you put up a great plan. He knows the system, but he's not actually involved in the system because he's not in the room. And you can only do all that zooming in and moving the shit around in the actual investigative room. And it wasn't until the beginning of the third act or the end of the second act, I don't know which one. Yeah, end of the second act, because third act begins when he kidnaps Agatha. I think that's fair to say.
Okay.
I feel like that's because that's where the momentum shifts from him being floundering. Once he's kidnapped her and they're on the run, I feel like that begins the third act. because it's the first act is the semi-world building, the setup, the accusation, and then second act is him investigating, trying to put everything together and figure out and then once he gets her, then he's trying to put everything into play. So when he gets her, but they didn't figure out that she was going to be a part of it until he's about to get her. So how could Burgess know that Agatha would be in play to make sure that John gets to the right place at the right time? Whereas Colin Farrell's character puts it, the orgy of evidence is there.
Yeah, I love that term. I've actually used that
It's a good
in other situations, like plot, like in story review and whatnot. But yeah, I feel like Burgess needed an actual plan to get John to the hotel. And if the precogs led him there through the visions like it was, that was what he hoped would happen, but he still needs to make a series of events to happen organically as well. Like, he needed both.
Yeah, and so John goes on the run immediately, and he says, and the line, they always run. And we got to remark, Tom Cruise running in another movie.
Well,
What
they
Tom
even
Cruise
make
does.
jokes about it with when Agatha is reliving the son's potential life. He's like, he's a runner, just like his daddy.
That's a little meta. It's a little Tom Cruise humor, meta humor.
I
And
appreciate it.
I got to realize, this is the fourth Tom Cruise movie we've done now. If we count Tropic Thunder, he was in that. A Few Good Men, Legend, which I know you regret with every bone in your body, and this is our fourth Tom Cruise movie now. I think he has the lead in lead actors on this show. Now that I think about it,
yeah,
so, something to think about. Anyway, so he's on the run, and here's another segment. I want to talk about this now in terms of. Well, actually, we were talking about the morality. I'm sorry, we sidetracked off the morality issue. So let's finish that conversation. The morality issue of arresting somebody before they do something. It's listen. I'm a big proponent of free will.
Yeah,
it is present in just about everything I write. Choice, free will. It's a cornerstone of a lot of stuff I'm going to do. I want to do down the road. To have the idea, and I know that the movie ends that free will is important. It gets to that point, it makes you understand it. But living in a world like that where your free will is taken away, it's frightening to me. And that nobody in DC is really protesting it. Do we see a lot of pushback about this in that city about it?
Not particularly, at least not from what we're aware of. And I think that's because of the safety that it comes across. Like, people throughout history have proven that they're willing to give up their freedom for their safety. It's not a good thing. And ultimately, it's a short-term thing. Like, that's not going to last forever. People will choose their freedom over safety in the end. But for a short term, after the amount of violence that was suggested in DC before pre-crime, I can see it being relatively justifiable from the law-abiding citizens to accept pre-crime for the time being, at least. But it was never going to last. It was never a system that could endure. And the problem is there is a precedent for arresting someone for a crime that they have not committed yet. It's called attempted murder. So if these people were being caught like moments beforehand, like the guy at the beginning of the film, weapon raised, ready to go, and then charged with attempted murder with the punishments that go along with that, I can see that as being morally right.
But they charged him for full-on murder.
Full-on murder.
And that leads me to my point where I want to go with this. There's a lot of ethical problems I have with this particular world. And they never really talk about it, but it's present constantly. The eye scanning. Big Brother is watching you constantly. You walk into a store, it scans your eyes. Hi, so-and-so. Welcome back. I was like, dude, that means everywhere you... And I don't... because of the lack of world building, we don't know if it's a DC only thing or if it's a nationwide thing. I have a feeling it's a nationwide thing, which means you can
seems like it.
Yeah. So that means in this world of 2054, the government knows where you are at all damn time. And that's frightening that they're making that the movie doesn't comment on that at all. At least I don't feel like it comments on the fact that the eye scan, I mean, they make a point to let you know that the eye scan will trigger him going here or there. But to me, it's connected with the morality of this. They solved one morality problem of arresting people. But the fact that the eye scan exists, that feels, it's not quite dystopic, but it's borderline for me.
It's getting pretty close to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it feels like an aside for world building purposes, but like you're saying, it is so
It's frightening.
bad and big that it needed to be a plot point. And I feel like it was partially injected just for the eye swapping stuff, which I actually have a problem with.
I have a big problem with that scene. Go ahead.
The scene?
The scene. The some of the not so much the scene, but some of the foundation of the scene. But you go first.
Okay, so I don't have a problem with him. The first thing he's going to do is get a fake ID. In
That's
this
not my
case, it's
problem.
his eyes.
Yeah,
that
that's not
makes
my
total sense. If you're on the run, the first thing you're going to do is get a disguise or a fake ID. Makes perfect sense. My problem with it is throughout the rest of the film, they never take out the security profile for his eyes.
Oh, thank you. That is one of the biggest plot holes. He is able, his original eyes still have him access. Even in current day, as soon as somebody's fired or something happens to them, their security credentials are scrubbed from any system they're involved with.
That's just basic policy everywhere.
That is
I've
a
ever
major
heard of.
problem in this movie. And it's
not just once. He actually actively uses his eyes to get into the temple of the precogs.
His wife uses his eye.
Yes, after he uses it once to get in the temple, they don't go, oh, wow, he used his eyes to get into the temple. Maybe we should do the obvious thing and take out a security profile.
Yeah.
They didn't do it.
Yeah, so there's that. But my also problem, and this is where I'm going to say, once again, Spielberg is indulgent, both in extra stuff that isn't necessary and also lame comedy involved in the eyes. First of all, the sketchy dude, the bad doctor who does the eye surgery, we didn't need him to have a backstory that John put him away. We didn't need any of that.
It didn't come into play. Like, if he had purposely, messed up the operation to get revenge, that could have been a plot point. But it went nowhere. You expect it to go somewhere, but...
Yeah, he basically says, thank you, John, for putting me in jail where I got ass rammed by bigger dudes in the shower. Thank you for doing that, but I'm not going to screw you over. Because he gave him... Because he paid up front. He paid up front. So I'm thinking, okay, he's not going to pay this sketchy dude until it's over because he's a sketchy dude. No, he paid him up front. So dude has his money with his girlfriend nurse who didn't wash her hands after going to the bathroom. And then came in and did the surgery.
There's so much weird going on with that scene. I feel like it could have worked if he gave him bad eyes or something like that, or if he's the reason why the cop showed up there.
And then there were still 5 hours left on the bandages when the spider drones scan his left eye. Do we know if that eye is blind?
It doesn't look like
movie?
it. That could have been an interesting plot point. If it
looks
had
weird.
been.
It has a little discoloration to it for the rest of the movie.
I never noticed that.
It's got some weird pattern on it from I get the scan him. So we don't know if that eye is blind. And he never comments that it's blind or not. So I feel as though little plot points fall through the cracks for the sake of the scene of the spider drone scanning the eye. So it's the eyes of an Asian man, I guess, who liked
he's an Asian man.
Tank tops at Gap.
And you're talking coincidence. What reasonable justification could it be that the cop showed up right then?
Yeah,
like in that period,
chose the right similar building that they were complaining about existed. They arrived, and so
and they mentioned that it's one of the older buildings they have to check because the one guy's like, "Let's do 8. I've got to eat. I've got to go home," and it's just some major coincidences and contrivances that build the plot.
And I know Spielberg is probably thinking he's being clever. Oh, look, he has to hold his breath, just like he had to hold his breath with his kid in the pool. He's holding his breath and he didn't make it. I'm sorry. I'm too annoyed by the whole scene in the first place of what's going on here. So these are what I'm talking about, the self-indulgent moments. And then also, there's a lot of forced comedy in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any reason he needs to drop his eyeballs when he's trying to scan his way into the temple?
No.
Is there any reason that moment needs to happen?
No.
No. It's
the eyeballs do create one of my favorite lines of the film, though, is when he asks the sketchy doctor to keep his eyes. The doctor's like, "Why the fuck do you want to keep your eyes?" And
Good line.
My mother gave them to me.
Good line.
That is probably my favorite line in the film.
Approve.
So there are good things to come out of the eye storyline, but there's a lot wrong with the eye storyline.
It's and so everything's surrounding that, and then so that's leading up to the kidnapping back. I mean, we skipped over a lot of little things because he's just wandering around. We talked about he talks to evil science lady, where we learned the term minority report, but we never actually see a minority report in the whole movie.
We never do, yeah.
You never do. because he's going off the idea, and for people who know, a minority report means basically an alternate future. It's an alternate future.
It's a report where one of the three precogs, always Agatha, disagrees with the other two about how a crime takes place, and the pre-crime executives decided to immediately disregard that because the whole thing falls apart if there's an idea of alternate futures being possible. If predestination isn't set in stone, then the whole system falls apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, Minority Report motivates him in a lot of scenes and what he does in his investigation. But yeah, we never once see a Minority Report.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a Minority Report for killing Crow, even though he didn't actually kill Crow. Like the vision was wrong. The vision
because he killed him after the time limit, and it killed him in a different way because Crow made him pull the trigger.
Yeah, so that would be more suicide. And do the precogs work on suicide?
No, they don't, because that suicide doesn't have the passion or the graphic emotions of murder. So they don't. It doesn't work that way. So he did have an report, but then that's whole stretch the whole point of creating your own future, team free will, as some would put it. And we get to that point where after the whole chase, we're into the third act. There's the whole chasing around, and you said it's convenient that Agatha has her wits about her enough to guide John through every little turn. And listen, it works.
Yeah,
because she sees the future, but she's just found enough of self-awareness to do it at that time when she's been drugged for who knows how many years in that tub of milk. And it works, but I just chuckle it off. And it's like, okay, yeah, I accept it, but I'm not happy about it, I think. Because it's too, as you would say, convenient. It's just happening, and he gets away, the umbrella and the balloon man, and then they're safe. And all right, I want to jump back real quick because I want to talk about Colin Farrell's character now. I'm sorry to jump around, guys. We got to talk about what was his name? Dwight? No, I forget. Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell.
I don't remember his name either.
Yeah, Colin Farrell. His character was handled horribly. Great performance, but his character is handled horribly for me because they lay it on too thick that he's an antagonist early on. And then in the last second, when they find the orgy of evidence, suddenly, he's an ally. Suddenly his good cop instincts are going to take over after weird fight scenes in the car factory and the chasing and all this stuff. I think it was bad use of his character. They should have had more him questioning things up until then. Up until the Crow murder or the Crow suicide, as it turns out to be. And I feel as though the execution of his character is bad because it leads all up to the moment where he realizes there's something going on, but then 2 seconds later, and you see it coming, and here's another glaring problem I have in this, when it's the reveal that Burgess is the one. Oh, we lost Jed. I can carry on. It's fine. Jed will be back, I'm sure. What I'm talking about is this. So we have a moment where, what do you mean X is going crazy? What? Oh shit. Oh wow. All right, this is real world. I'm gonna say at the moment it seems there's been a reports of a shots at a Trump rally. And I'm sorry to bring this in when we try to escape the real world, but let you know that's what's happening in real time. Maybe something happened where Jed got cut off for that reason. Don't know. Okay, he's safe. Okay, well, all right, so I apologize for breaking that, and I'm sure I'll be talking about that later tonight on Chatterday on Derny's channel, so that'll be a thing. Wow. I know we try to keep real world events out of this, guys. I'm sorry, but when I see you guys talking about that in the chat, that kind of hang on, here's Jed. Hang on a second. Hold on. Okay, Jed's internet is out. So I'm going to do my best to carry on. We might end the show a little early for that reason. So, and if you guys need to, Jed and I will do an additional thing on this to get his thoughts on these things because we can't get his score without him. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to run through the last part of the movie and my thoughts on it. And if Jed can get back, because he said Storm took out the internet where he is, he can jump back in and give his thoughts on it. So what we have here is I was talking about my next glaring problem in there. So at one point, Colin Farrell's character, he figures out that there's a conspiracy going on to frame Tom Cruise's character, John. And it's too quick for that. I don't like the way it happens too quickly. And when he figures it out, he goes to Burgess, who we've already told you is the mastermind behind all this. And Burgess uses Tom Cruise's character's gun that he gave him when they were both cops in Baltimore to kill Colin Farrell's character. It's another big problem. Why is that gun loaded? That is evidence from a crime scene. Why is it loaded? That's a very big problem for me right there. That gun shouldn't even be, that gun should be in evidence. It should not be being carried around on in a discussion off the books with somebody else. So that's a very big problem there. And at that point, what happens eventually, Tom Cruise's character is now accused of both killing Crow and killing Colin Farrell. They eventually corral him at his wife's place up at a lake. The wife is good. She's a good character. She's working. She wants the best for him. And they didn't get divorced because she fell out of love with him. They got divorced because she couldn't stop seeing her son with what was going on there, after their issues. And she keeps him there. But then there's a whole thing there with Agatha where he brings Agatha there, and Burgess tells her to keep him there. And the whole reason Burgess kills Colin Farrell because there was no precogs, they can't predict the crime. Sorry. Without Jed here to keep me anchored, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. Anyway, so everybody arrives. Before they do, Agatha has a breakdown of... Well, not a breakdown. We see what it looks like when she's surrounded by positive energy. She's the evil is drowned out. And that's where it sets up later. They could put them in a nice, calm place and not have any problems. So what happens is... Agatha's busy, in my opinion, also kind of wasting time. It's more wasting time that could be better spent with the movie, talking about a loving family, this and that. Daddy's running. He wants to be able to do a future of their son if they had lived. Him, sorry. And all these point where here comes the pre-crime cops. They halo John. Oh, there's the halo. The halo is the device they put on the perpetrators to basically zonk them out and put them in basically suspended animation of sorts. I don't know. And what happens is they come, they get him, and Burgess thinks he's won. But then what happens is after Tom Cruise's wife goes to talk to Burgess on the big day of him now being promoted to head of the nationwide crime prevention, the pre-crime agency, he lets it slip. He lets slip information. Oh, there he is. He's back. There you're back.
Sorry about that, Storm.
The storm, and also we're dealing with an event that's happened at a rally in Trump right now. So yeah. So I mentioned, I apologize for mentioning it, guys. And so we just mentioning it's happening and this and that. Anyway, so I just went over how they're at the house. And my biggest point of this, let me jump back now because I want your thought on this. When Colin Farrell is talking to Burgess about how he's had his face turn, and he's now working to clear Tom Cruise of the conspiracy, not knowing that Burgess is the head of conspiracy. And right in that moment, you realize it's going to be Burgess. And right in that moment, it's very obvious.
Oh, yeah.
That gun should not have...
for most of the movie.
Well, honestly, I was a little, I didn't spot it till almost then. It didn't occur to me till almost then.
I guess hindsight with a rewatch is 2020.
But here's this. So when Colin Farrell brings the gun that they took from the crime scene to Burgess's to Tom Cruise's apartment, why is that gun loaded?
It doesn't
why is it not
sense.
in evidence?
At least an evidence bag.
Yeah, but it's loaded, and it's not like Burgess needed to load anything. No, it's loaded when it's given to him.
Well, and what doesn't help either is because, like you said, it is evidence, even though it's not in evidence right now. The police have a record of possessing it. It's not like, oh, Tom Cruise had it the whole time.
Yeah.
There's this plausible deniability that Tom Cruise isn't the shooter.
And the timeline doesn't match up. If he leaves the gun at Crow, and Crow's dead body got a different time of death than Colin Farrell's character, how does he shoot him with the same gun if he can't? Very big plot hole. Plot hole.
Tom Cruise was kidnapped or arrested, half an hour maybe after? What's his bucket was was killed.
Yeah.
But how did he get all the way out into the middle of nowhere in a car in that amount of time?
Yeah.
No police officer with the shred of intelligence who wasn't being bribed would legitimately believe Tom Cruise killed that guy.
And that's the problem too. Tom Cruise's team, at least his good friends of the team, I expect at some point in the movie they would try to back him. They never try to back him. And that bothers me.
Well, the black guy does.
Yeah, eventually at the very end. But
Neil
nobody else
McDiamond,
does.
yeah. I felt like Neil McDiamond was going to. And they were setting up throughout the whole movie that other guy was a loose cannon and was angry at Anderton and was going to be violent. That never gets paid off.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. So I was talking about the country house now, where Burgess tells the wife to keep him busy, and I felt it's kind of a wasted scene with Agatha talking about their life and the future of their son. I know it's a setup to show that a positive energy can have an effect on the precog and keep them sane, but it's just I feel like it was just too much. It was too much for me.
It was over dramatic, but I appreciate the character building, especially for Agatha. In there.
Yeah, it gives Agatha some character, but I just feel it was over the top.
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
It could have been short,
especially with the bloom.
Could have cut 2 minutes off it. Yeah, and then the pre-crime shows up. They halo him, and I explained halo. We hadn't explained halo, so I explained halos. They halo him, and then I was at the point where you came back in where Burgess lets it slip. Too much information slip around the wife. That something went down and she figures it out. And how did she get his eye?
That was in evidence. It was in a
but it was in his bag. It was in his bag.
Oh no, I do know this. Burgess on that little coffee table was going through John's personal effects, the things he was arrested with, and so his eye
took it? Okay.
So he took it from Burgess's office.
I missed that. Okay.
We didn't see it, but that's my assumption.
All right.
A little headcanon, but
I'll
I can
accept
see
it. I'll accept it.
The dots.
I'll accept it. I mean, let's be honest. It's pretty much established that with all the pre-crime going on DC, these cops ain't exactly the best at investigating or anything anymore. They're all sloppy as hell.
Neil McDiamond said he was a treasury agent before pre-crime, so he's never investigated a real homicide.
Yeah, so these are not tippy-top good cops. And when I say good cops, I mean quality. They don't know how to do their jobs. So now Burgess thinks he's won, and he puts Tom Cruise on ice. But then the wife breaks him out. We already talked about how silly that is, that the eye scan still gets her into the prison with the one guard in the wheelchair.
That wheelchair dude, it's like kind of like what you were saying with the eye rolling scene, just necessary forced cringe comedy.
Yeah.
In all of his scenes.
Yeah. So they break out Tom Cruise, and now they set up the whole final thing. And that's what I mentioned earlier. That you had the ride of escaping, running on the run, getting here, getting there, a little action here, a little action there. And then suddenly, even though it's a well-constructed moment of confrontation, it doesn't have to be final battle type shit. It's still the pacing of the final moments of the third act. It slows to a crawl.
It does. And there's no action in it. This movie promised a lot of action, doesn't super deliver on that. I was hoping for at least like I mentioned, the payoff of that hot head. Mm-hmm. Maybe Tom Cruise fought him again.
Our villain is just a guy. I mean, and listen, Burgess is a son of a bitch, but his motivations were to protect people. It was that needs the many outneeds the few, or the one. That's the kind of concept it is. And in his mind, the equation, the sacrifice of a former junkie in order to prevent the deaths or kidnappings of of potentially millions of people into the future. It was a balance that he was willing to deal with.
There is a philosophy, an interesting philosophy to that. And I feel like we could have spent more time delving into that because, he does see himself as in the right, a morally good person. So there's something interesting to be said there, but the film does not delve into it at all besides in passing.
Because then the thing, they set up the trap for him where,
and the trap makes zero sense.
Yeah.
It relies upon the wife breaking John out. We already said the eyeball thing doesn't make sense, but okay, whatever. And then John confronting Burgess at the party. All right, those dots connect, but everything with Agatha doesn't make sense. The wife assumes that Agatha's going to relive the vision again. Okay, they already have copies of it. Why is she assuming that? She calls the black guy to do it. Why does Agatha this one time reveal more of the vision that actually incriminates Burgess? There's been no change. She's been trying to show that Burgess is the killer for years at this point, evidently. If she had the ability to extend the vision to include him, why has she never done so before? Why is it coincidentally now? Why does the wife know she's going to do this now? They didn't have a chance to coordinate this before John was arrested.
No,
there's no way the wife can just.
It's literally been
Agatha's got an extended vision coming,
and Agatha just got put back in the juice, so there's no adjustment period. There's a lot of loose running with the rules of all of this to get to our conclusion, and then the whole point. You can choose. John chose not to do the murder, and therefore we establish free will is still possible in this world of precognition. And John was banking a lot that Burgess would have his moral crisis and not shoot him. But
I don't even know if that John. I don't know if they fully explained that he's not. What's the YouTube friendly Minecraftable himself, willing to Minecraft himself, because that has kind of been an edge to his character throughout the whole film because of the loss of his son. So he's already destroyed Burgess by the precog vision. We'll just pretend that part makes sense. So I think he is willing to die, but he hasn't really come full circle yet. He's not healed yet. He's on the path to healing. But I think he would be okay if Burgess shot him there. It's better than living in the prison.
Yeah, and because then
either way, Burgess loses.
Burgess done, and the pre-crime, which John believes in, he believes in the concept, at least up until there. That continues without the corruption and the taint of Burgess. But in the end, Burgess offs himself. He Minecrafts himself, and story over.
I don't think that makes sense because the rules
there's no build-up.
No. The rules establish that you can change your future if you know your future. Well, yeah, they know that there's been a vision. The precogs are aware of the situation, but they didn't actually know what the vision said. Maybe the vision said the whole time that Burgess shot himself. They don't actually know a vision took place. So it kind of muddies up the rules.
It's messy.
So.
It's messy.
It's very messy.
And then that's the end of everything. It's the end of pre-crime. The world moves on. They don't talk about if murder rates skyrocket. And then John gets back together with his wife. They have another child on the way, and the precogs get to live in the middle of nowhere where nothing can bother them. And happy ending. And I'm all for happy endings, but it's just a little too neat. Because this is still a very sketchy world as we've described. And there has to be more fallout from all this. I mean, what is John's job? Is he a cop again? I mean, what's going on here? What happens it ties it up too neatly, and there's so many loose ends and so many loose use of the rules that they set up early on. It doesn't sit well with me in the end. I didn't hate any of it, but I was watching the clock the whole time I was watching this movie. I mean, I knew how long it was going to be. I was like, okay, all right, I'm getting close to when it's done. I took a break in the middle to run the dishwasher at one point, but let's okay, are we going? Are we there? What's going on here? And then it's over. I'm like, okay, it's done. And there it is. It's done. And I was just kind of happy. I didn't hate it, but I was kind of, this movie didn't move me. The performances were all good. Everybody does a good job. Everybody acts well. Steven Spielberg can direct, but at this point,
he needed someone else doing the lighting.
Yeah, he's far past his prime for when he does do really good job. And also, as I said, I felt there were certain points where he was really self-indulgent with these extra shots, with too much hamming it up on stuff, unnecessary scenery, unnecessary exposition.
You can definitely see a lot of the problems that has plagued the rest of Steven Spielberg's career. I feel like after this year, he never made a film that was better than mediocre, at least that I've seen. I haven't seen every single Spielberg movie since 2002, but from the ones I've seen, there's a lot of rough films. I mean, we remember West Side Story from a couple of years ago.
Oh, man, yeah.
That was not received
bombed.
well.
Bombed
hard.
Completely.
If Spielberg's bombing at the box office, you know that there's something wrong. But
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
it you could see the beginnings of it, like you're saying. I do
Yeah.
understand this film, and I know you don't love Catch Me If You Can. That came out the same year. That's why I say the year, not the movie, because I
Mhm.
love Catch Me If You Can. Kind of like this movie.
It's more. I don't like who's in it. You know, I
Yeah,
have a problem with
that's
both
fair.
Tom Hanks and DiCaprio. I have a lot of problems with both of them. So
Catch Me If You Can is very much a film like I described this one, where I just, if I don't have anything else to watch, I'll throw this on the background. Catch Me If You Can is the same way. But yeah, you can see the problems beginning in this film. He's not the man he was back in the 80s, 90s, and even 70s.
hungry,
Yeah.
and not letting Hollywood politics run his decision making or run how he shoots a film. And that's a very big deal, the very big thing later in his career. And now, or basically consolidating power. Let's be honest, Spielberg consolidated power and is still is to this moment one of the biggest lever pullers in Western entertainment. People want to do something, want to make sure that people involved are in good with Spielberg, so that that they don't, if they want to use something associated with him, they hit no roadblocks or get his praise on it and get pushed forward for like maybe good production or producers or money coming in. There's a lot of stuff like that, but so there it is. So you heard my last thoughts on Menard. Jed, what are your final thoughts on this?
Well, there are a lot of flaws in this film. Nothing that Adam said I disagree with, and even some points I take farther than him. I believe there are so many contrivances and coincidences in this film. A lot of contradictions as well, which is always a problem, and things just that don't stand up to a basic logic. Like internally, the eyeball things might work in plot, but it doesn't hold up to external scrutiny. And so I don't blame anyone for not liking this movie. I have a very subjective relationship with this film and can enjoy it every time I watch it, but still recognize that it has a lot of flaws. So
Yeah.
I still recommend it to people. Still think it is a fun film, not quite turn your brain off type fun, but still got some interesting ideas. The idea of the morality of pre-crime, I think, is fascinating, and this world that's been established and all that type of stuff has a lot of potential for discussion, and I enjoy that type of speculation. But the film doesn't take it far enough, especially since it expanded on the source material. I don't know if you know this, but it's based on a short story. So
No, I did not.
So yeah, the short story is like 10 or 20 pages. I've never read it, but
Wow.
that's what I've heard. So
That's
like
nothing.
source material was nebulous at best. So a lot of this is Spielberg's own creation. So I can't say what this film did in the box office or how well it was received, but I do think it is an enjoyable film. If not
Everybody always talks about it. I mean, it is part of this cultural zeitgeist. It is. It left a lasting impression. Could definitely say that.
They need to rename it though, like you said. There's no Minority Report in the movie.
Yeah, I don't understand that. All right, so what's your score on it? It's your week. You go first.
Well, I always like to separate the subjective from the objective. If we're going subjective, I'd probably give this close to an 8 or so. Like I enjoy it every single time. It's a great background film for me because of how many times I've seen it, but I do recognize the flaws to a point where I can't in good conscience give it that score. So because of everything we mentioned, I feel like a 5.5 is the fair score.
Wow. Okay. Damn. I'm actually going to rate it higher because I give it its points for quality of acting, performances. It is a realized world. You do feel a part of the world, but all the criticisms I said to me draw away from it and drop it for me down to a 7 out of 10. It's a good movie. It's a fine movie. You don't waste your time with it because, like you said, the ethical discussions that can come out of it are things that should be talked about, especially when you're science fiction people like us, where these types of things we have to think about. Will they ever play into the kind of stuff that we write or do anything like that? So it's good conversation, but I'm never going to watch this again. I can guarantee, unless somebody says we're watching this at some gathering, I'm never going to watch it again because I've seen all I need from it. It's not as though I'm going to get something new out of it every time. For me, it's one and done. So I can leave it a 7 out of 10. You can watch it. It's earned its place in the cultural zeitgeist. But other than that, I don't have much personal use for it after that. Okay. We're done. Next week, we're going to go back to the 80s. I know Jed always feels very cautious when I say that, but we're going to watch.
I love the 80s. I think it's the best decade for filmmaking. I genuinely believe that.
Okay. We're going to watch Real Genius with Val Kilmer. You ever seen Real Genius?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Oh, okay. It's a cult classic. basically geniuses. Basically, what happens when it's sort of a combination, little comedy, little. It's that weird combination of the 80s where it's comedy but not quite. It's no action. Makes you think. What happens when geniuses find out their what they've created have other applications than what they intended for at a genius school. But it's Val Kilmer at his best in the 80s. It really is a lot of fun. I enjoy it. It's a good. Most people always have fun with them. So I hope you like it. Might be have one of these bad things. It has weaknesses. I will tell you now. There's some acting in it. You're gonna be like, oh. But Val Kilmer and some of the established actors of that period of time make the movie good, and the story is a good story overall, that kind of stuff. And I think
I've never disliked the Val Kilmer performance. I've disliked some of his movies, but never disliked the Val Kilmer performance. So
I know exactly which performances you're going to be. God, I want to murder this person, but I'm prepared for that because I agree with you. But it's a fun one. So we're watching Real Genius next week, same time. Actually, you know what? Hour later.
Okay.
I'm getting a haircut next week. So hour later, 7 p.m. Eastern. So thank you all here. Thank you for sticking with us, even though there was breaking news events going on. And if you're watching on the replay, I apologize again for that when that happened. But when I see the chat talking about it, it surprised me. And I had to acknowledge that happened while we were doing this. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channels, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully we don't get a claim for this because it's happening lately. Bye, everybody.